Hey, it's Chris Doucher for GeekNerdNet.com. Let's call this the post interview from Calgary Expo 2025. I met these two fine gentlemen there. They're amazing guys. They dress up in awesome Deep Space Nine baseball uniforms, which immediately makes any Trek nerd like me stop. But also because of their book, and their book that I'm talking about is USNA, United States of North America. I'm joined by Allan Stanleigh, creator and producer and business manager Larry Stanleigh. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello. So, for clarification, if anyone's wondering, Allan has a beard and Larry does not. So,
That's how.
or is
That's how.
that a full week growth there, Larry? What's up?
About,
That'd be me.
6 hours or so. Yeah.
Nice.
That's how we tell each other apart.
Yes. Otherwise, if Alan shaved, we wouldn't know who's who.
Separated at birth.
Yes.
No. We'll get to Star Trek stuff later if we have time, because it's a ton of fun. But you guys are great. I met you for the first time, obviously, this past weekend at Calgary Expo. We got talking about your book. In fact, Francine Delgado, spoiler alert, who's the artist on USNA 2, her and I know each other, and she's like, come talk to them, And I said, of course, let's go. So, Larry, I first talked to you when I first came to the table, and then eventually both of you. And USNA was, we just chatted about it before we started recording. USNA was a screenplay initially that was written in 1988, for those that don't know. And then over the years, you guys decided you would make a great graphic novel series. And the having flipped through them and talked to you both, the USNA 1 and then USNA 2, the writing and the art all look fantastic. They marry really well together. I'll stop chatting. Allan, why don't you give us a rundown on USNA and the premise of the story?
The premise of the story is that it's a time in the future, and we do not specify when, but we call it the near future. And the reason why we do that is simply because books like 1984 and 2001, those dates pass and people will do comparisons. But we want to always be able to update the story and keep it in the future. So it's the near future when Canada and the United States have amalgamated to a new country called the United States of North America. And similar to what's going on today, where Trump is talking about buying Canada. We projected that it was a buyout of Canada where the people were offered quite a substantial amount of money each if they voted for an amalgamation. So the amalgamation became the United States of North America. However, it's not going well. There are prison farms where there used to be family farms. There are wars in Central America, drug wars, where our young people are now being conscripted. And the Canadians are kind of going, we didn't sign up for this, and there's a rebellion. So the rebellion is led by a former prime minister, and the USNA story, the first book that we wrote, tells the story of the rebellion.
And the prime minister's name is Stern, is that correct?
Samuel Stern, yes.
I love the name because he's not messing around.
Yeah.
The one thing that's striking, and we chatted about this on the weekend, is the eerie, just hearing the concept of the book, the story of the book, without having obviously had a chance, I apologize, gentlemen, to read all the way through it just yet, but I will. It's right there. It's just eerie that almost 40 years later, we've got this book that's almost reflecting, in a sense, a narrative that's at least trying to be played out by one part in the States, saying, we can just economically tear them down and buy them. And so when we're talking about economies, we're talking about businesses. We're talking about business, we're talking about corporations, which again leads right back to USNA. Everything you just talked about. I do like that there's a rebellion. That's always good. Every story needs to get a rebellion. And Canadians fight, we're put in a corner. I mean, look at it. We play hockey. So gladiators on ice.
The Canadians, when they are in battle, are at least apologizing, as they shoot their opponents.
Yes. Oh,
we
sorry.
are Canadian.
The one thing I'm going to read off paper here for a second. The one thing that I failed to mention earlier, Allan, along with yourself, You also have, at least on USNA 1, and please clarify for number 2 for me after. We've got Harry Kalensky, did I get that name correct?
Yes.
And David Longworth.
Yes.
And then in the second book, in the first book, art is by Dave Casey, and second book, art is by Francine Delgado.
Right.
So if I miss anything, please let me know on that.
Okay, so well, the one name that we would include is Chris Barrett, and Chris Barrett did all the lettering in USNA too. But he also wrote we wrote a prequel story about the political machinations on how USNA became USNA, the background to it, and he was the artist and letterer for that story, and it's included in the deluxe version of USNA 1. So
Nice.
he's an important part of the overall team. And the great part of creating the graphic novel was meeting all of these great artists. And Davey and Harry and I and Larry are not artists, and we needed to find them. And we found really wonderful people.
Yeah, we sure did.
Who created these with us. So
Yeah,
nice. I can take co-writing credit, but I cannot take any artistic credit in design. Yeah,
that's fair. Apologies to Chris. I did have his name written down, and I wrote it lower in the page, so that's on me. But thank you for mentioning Allan. Okay, sure. Guys. So let's go back for a second. Allan, when this screenplay initial idea came up for you back in '88, leading with, how long did it take you to put this together? I guess as a screenplay.
So the original idea actually came from Davey Longworth. And he had this vision of these tractors and combines tricked up with armor and guns converging on a bunch of soldiers in a prairie field. And he had USNA, and that's it. And he came to me with that idea and said, I don't know what this is, but what can we do with it? And I think over probably getting together once every week, 2 weeks, it took about a year to flesh out the complete story in a first draft. I think overall it might have taken a couple of years. It's a long time ago, so I don't quite remember. And then during that time, we met Harry and kind of brought Harry in halfway through or a little more. And we've done other screenplays and other books with Harry. But I would say no less than a year and probably more. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. And the creative, obviously the creative collaboration is so much fun when that spark hits. And then I love the fact that you essentially you ran with it. Excuse me. And let's move forward a little bit after, I think, and fill in the blanks for me if I'm incorrect on remembering our conversation. There were some pitches along the way of the screenplay itself, and it deemed for one reason or another too expensive or too many locations, whichever side of the border you were on, or not wanting to take a chance because it made one look worse than the other in terms of America over Canada.
Yes.
And then you lead into you decide when did you decide, okay, you know what, I think this is going to make a really good graphic novel because we really want to get this story out there.
That was when I got involved. A good decade or more went by, and I had noted that some graphic novels that I was a fan of, things like The Watchmen and Sin City, were made into movies that were successful. And I thought, what if we did the reverse? What if we took this movie screenplay and made it into a graphic novel? Because I really want to see this movie. I want to see this story get out there as a theatrical production, and so that's when I got involved. And I said, look, I'm willing to put up the money, help find an artist, and let's make this happen. And people enthusiastically got on board, and we made it happen. We found a great artist in Dave Casey, and didn't realize that it took 3 years to do the artwork for 200 pages of original art. But of course, it makes sense now that we've seen it. The details involved is just incredible. and he gave up a lot to create this amazing work for us, and then we started selling it at comic expos, and we would go to Toronto and Saskatoon and Edmonton and Calgary and Vancouver, and we did fairly well, reached a good audience, and the fans said, "This is great. What happens next?"
Yeah.
So Allan and his writing partners wrote a sequel, cleverly titled USNA 2. And Dave wasn't available. Dave Casey wasn't available to do the artwork. And Allan and his partners had met Francine Delgado at VanCaf,
Vancouver
the Comic Arts Festival in Vancouver, and just took a liking to her personality. I mean, how can you not like her? She's just amazing, and she's talented too. So we brought her on board, and she did the artwork for USNA 2, which we are thrilled with. It's a different style than Dave Casey, but people would look at the character and they, oh yeah, that's Carol, and oh yeah, that's they're all recognizable. It's just a different style, but the story's great, and now the rebellion is spread throughout North America, and it's been fun.
Amazing. And then when you're talking to fans and complete strangers even at shows, and even me, like when I heard the story, I'm like, oh my God, forget about the politics for a second.
Right.
Like today, the story itself is very cool. I mean, especially from a Canadian point of view, again, forgetting about the politics of today. But what I mean by that is our nightmare would be something akin to this. And so it just happened to coincidentally now fall into a weird reality of connecting, right? Coincidence. When you see other fans at shows and you talk to them about this first time, like, do you see sort of their like that aha go and like, yes, please tell me more?
Well, we get that a lot. Our basic pitch is either asking people, have you heard of USNA? And they go, no, and then you can give them the spiel. Or we just ask them about the politics of the situation going on now, and do you know that this book is about that? And they go, oh, really? But what we do find is that people come back to us after reading it and thanking us because they really enjoyed the story. And we are getting people coming to us saying, well, when is USNA 3 going to happen? So that's the ultimate compliment to us, is that they like the story so much, they want it to continue.
One of the funny reactions that we get every so often is someone will hear the premise and they'll go, oh, that's too scary. I don't even want to read the book.
Yeah.
And they walk away. And I think, well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But, and some people do say, oh, I don't want to read anything about politics. But this story is not about politics. Politics set the stage, but it's a character-driven action-adventure story.
For sure.
Carol Weaver, the protagonist, a female lawyer, she loses her husband, then she loses her son, and killed as a rebel, and takes her younger son, and they decides to visit her sister in Calgary, and driving across the country, gets kidnapped and enrolled in the rebel cause. So there's this chase right across the country, and so it's action, it's adventure, it's got it's character driven, people you really care about. It's got a great cast of characters, and that's why I've loved it so much.
Well, I can attest to the fact that having only read a little bit of it, it is definitely does not hit as boring politics speak at all. It gets right into it, and there's a couple scenes where it's like, holy crap, I didn't see that coming. I'm on like page 14. So, which is great because obviously it has to grab you. When you're putting together, without spoilers, but when you're putting together USNA 2 as an example, and you bring in a new artist, and Francine Delgado, you bring her in on the book. How does that collaborative creative process go back and forth? Did she bring things to the table that maybe you guys didn't look at a certain way, like, oh wow, okay, this changes the narrative a little bit, and we like this, let's move maybe this scene this way or these panels this way? How did that change going from one artist to the next?
So working with Dave Casey, the first artist, we gave him the screenplay and he just created it. And what he did is that he would give us each page as he created them for our approval. And if there was anything missing, or if he decided to go off in a direction that we didn't want him to go, because sometimes the artists take liberties and they think, well, I don't like the story here, I'll go there. So we had to approve every page and then he would do the final. With Francine, she asked us to put it in comic book format. So we had to actually go, okay, this page has 6 panels, it has these characters, and this is the dialogue in each of the panels. And then she would create it from that, and then we would approve that, and then she would do the final inking and shading and stuff like that. And then we would give it to Chris Barrett, and he would do all the balloons and the lettering, and the signs, and all that sort of thing. So each artist was different. Francine did not did not make any suggestions in the story. There were a few places where she made suggestions on how we had set the pages up as an artist, or there was too much dialogue here, and can you cut that back? And so that helped in terms of just the writing. So, but every artist works differently.
It's interesting to hear that because it's suddenly a little bit of a departure from what perhaps you and the writing team were used to, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a minute. Okay, let's move it this way and make sure we can get this thing across the finish line, right?
Well, yeah, and to think in comic book format was really alien to us because when you think screenplays are written where you set it up that you'd go, the first scene is interior of a room. If I was going to write this scene here, interior, 2 guys, middle-aged, young guys, 2 young guys sitting in front of super young, 2 teens sitting in front of a camera, talking to someone on a Zoom call, medium shot, and then you'd write whatever dialogue. So it would be Allan in the dialogue and then Larry in the dialogue. So it's kind of bare bones. You try to put as little in it as you can. You don't describe the characters because the director might have someone in mind. So if you said they were like 6'6" or, or certain color or something, that you let the directors and the other people decide that, unless that has something to do with the story. Like it's important that the guy's a big 6'6" guy.
Right.
I mean, if you're familiar with Reacher, he's a big guy, right? And so and that's part of the character. So you don't cast a Tom Cruise, although Tom Cruise cast himself.
Right.
But when it came to comic book format, you actually had to visualize a comic. And you had to think about the visual flow. And it can't be jarring. You can't be jumping from one thing to another and people being confused as to, well, wait a sec, what happened there? And you have to make sure that the dialogue is concise enough that it will fit in that, and you can think in terms of sometimes you do a whole page. So if it's an action sequence, you could have one image on one page or on 2 pages. So it's a different kind of thinking than just writing and, writing words down and linking it that way. Yeah,
for sure. And, on that note, did you find when you were suddenly, like when you're trimming and cutting or editing for, if put it in the screenplay term, when you're all of a sudden you're editing your own stuff of where you thought it was going to go, you're still going the same direction with story, but maybe one part of the panel, the art takes that, explains it rather than the dialogue and vice versa. Did you find that tightened up your story a bit in terms of having to sit back and go, okay, wait a minute, now we really need to kind of tighten this up?
Well, comics and film are similar in that you don't want to explain what's going on. You want to allow the visual to do it.
For sure.
And so I always respect filmmakers and comic makers who are more visually oriented and not a lot of words. So we really had to think about each panel and what was being presented in the story, and make sure that we knew that there wasn't something missing that would confuse people, or they go, what's going on here? So then it might need you do that with things like if you're shifting a scene from one room to a different location, but it's a room too, but so you have to say, okay, this is the Texas Armory desk, and this is the next scene we might flip to San Francisco office, but you have to say it's the San Francisco office because they might look. So there's things like that you have to pay attention to.
Of course.
Yeah, but it's really important to think visually and less verbally or auditory. So yeah, I respect comic book artists who do their own art and their own writing and can get really precise, but because it's quite a skill. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you, gentlemen, where can people, if they're watching this, where can they find, if they're not going to a show, where can they find your work if they want to order your books?
USNA.ca.
Okay.
That's the best place to go. United States of North America is also on Facebook. You can reach us there. Instagram as well, USNA Novel. YouTube as well. But the website, which we're in the process of redeveloping, hopefully we'll have the brand new website up in a couple of weeks, so by mid-May, and have the e-commerce site there and the ability to order books directly from us. They're also available on Amazon.
Fantastic. If you guys don't mind me switching gears for a quick second here before we have to sign off, we will chat again, by the way. We'll do a part 2 of this.
Look forward to it.
I'm going to have more questions for you when I finish reading the whole thing.
Okay.
It's funny. So the connection here is interesting in that when I first met the two of you at Calgary Expo, sorry, one second, I got a little alert here. There we go. Good. When I first met you guys, you're wearing the Niners baseball jerseys, like the full kit from Deep Space Nine. And on my desk, I was a baseball fan, and I'm always doing this. And I didn't start doing that until Cisco on Deep Space Nine. So it's funny how that stuff gets ingrained to you.
Sure.
It just sticks with you forever because I was a teenager when I was watching it. So then I just put baseball on my desk, and here we go. And seriously, when I'm thinking or when I'm doing stuff, I'm just tossing it up and doing whatever. Talk about your love of Deep Space Nine, because I think, didn't you wear something else? You wore actual Federation uniforms on Sunday.
We did.
Show. On day
Friday, we were in Star Trek Strange New Worlds uniforms. Saturday was the Niners from Deep Space Nine. Sunday, I was in a Star Trek, the Kelvin universe. I was wearing the Picard jacket from Darmok and the Next Generation, and Alan was in the Lower Decks outfit. So. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm going to assume that you guys, the two of you, have loved Star Trek since the beginning.
Since the 60s.
We saw it on television. Home when we were growing up.
Which is pretty amazing for a couple of teenage guys, It's just that.
I mean, the foundations of it, this will definitely be a conversation for the next time we chat, just because of the foundations of the show itself and the stories, and literally always ahead of its time, which is poignant and important. But listen, I want to thank you both for joining me and being doing this interview and making time. It's always appreciated, especially as we're all busy and we all have lives outside of our fandom and nerddom. I will say again that USNA so far, while only shortly into the series, I'm hooked, and so I can't wait to finish it and reconnect with the two of you and then chat again. So thank you very much.
We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.